al lío. Lo que estáis viendo aquí abajo son las pulsaciones. Que empieza.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Thanks for joining us for today's live stream as we unveil
Hola, guapo.
Path of Exile Crucible, which launches on April 7th on PC and Mac. And
Sale el día 7 en la liga.
Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Sphinx wings.
Las alas guapas.
Speaking of live streams, this is our last dedicated Path of Exile 1 announcement stream for around 6 months. That's because our 322 expansion announcement will occur during
Esto hay que
the
tacharlo del bingo.
live stream in late July. Set yourself a reminder to tune in, because we'll also be unveiling massive amounts of information about Path of Exile 2, including revealing the date that
El 29 de julio presentan toda la
back to today's
información.
live stream. Here's what you can expect.
Nuevas
We'll start with the
Val
tale of the
skills.
Crucible, followed by a deep dive on the League itself. Then we'll cover this expansion's endgame improvements, including the introduction of Atlas Gateways and revamps to
Atlas
both leagues and
Gateways!
leagues.
What?
We'll discuss changes to Path of Exile's balance metagame, including changes to the passive skill tree, its masteries, an overhaul of the sabotage...
¿Maestrías en el árbol de pasivas? ¿Maestrías en el árbol del Atlas?
And some of the new unique
No,
items
espérate,
you can
espérate.
build around.
Mejoran a
We'll cover
clases
improvements
únicas.
to the Ruthless game mode and the League launch boss
Ay, ay,
battle
ay,
event,
ay, ay.
before diving into the
No
new
tiene,
supporter
no
pack
tiene,
series.
no tiene
The live
subtítulos.
stream will then conclude with a Q&A session between Ziggy D and me, where we'll answer
Y notas
questions
del
from
parche.
Twitch chat. After the live stream, we'll drop the full patch notes.
Let's get started with the trailer for
Vamos a ver el
Path of Exile
tráiler.
Crucible.
Vamos a ver el tráiler.
Hail, one of many.
Esto es lo que hemos visto.
My kind walked the molten surface of this world.
Vale, esto es lo que nos vamos a encontrar en el mapa.
Seek a champion. You must endure the heat of the Crucible.
Parece un poco rollo ultimátum.
Forge weapons unlike any Raycast has ever seen.
Vale. Hostia.
Take up
¿Cómo?
the power of the
¿Cómo?
Titans.
Vale, mejoras a los ítems. Va. Espérate, ¿los objetos van a tener un árbol de pasivas? Reworkan Abyss y Bridge. Reworkan la Pathfinder y el Saboteur. Vale. 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 Vale, la mecánica no se ha visto casi nada de ella. Pero... lo del árbol de pasivas, ¿qué cojones?
In Path of Exile Crucible, you'll learn about an ancient race of titans who once shaped the primordial surface.
La raza de los titanes.
In this league, you will earn the ability to forge their power onto your weapons.
Podrás
And what
forjar su
form does that
poder
power
en
take?
tus
In
ítems.
an iconically Path of Exile way, it's the ability to imbue your weapons with their own passive skill trees.
Pero tío,
These
¿qué es
Crucible
esto?
trees can have quite an impact on your character build. For example, in addition to the regular mods on this bow, its Crucible tree grants additional physical damage, physical to chaos conversion, the
¿Qué
Master
hacen?
Fletcher notable passive, improved grace effect, and level 10 lesser multiple projectiles. While this is certainly a decent tree to get, it's not even the maximum depth and could be even more optimized for your build.
Puede ser
In
aún
order
más
to forge
profundo.
these powerful trees
¿Qué
into your
hacen?
weapons, you'll need to complete Crucible encounters. There's one in each area. Each encounter takes place at a Crucible forge.
Con las putas alas
As you
de los
approach the
dos.
forge, you'll have the choice of which of your equipped weapons you want to focus on.
Vale, puedes
You can
centrarte en
include
una de
ones on
tus
your alternate
armas.
weapon swap if you want to improve one you're not currently using. After selecting a weapon, you channel it at the Crucible forge to spawn monsters. The longer you channel for, the more dangerous and rewarding the encounter becomes. As you spawn additional monsters, they combine together to create larger and more fearsome foes that grant even more experience for your Crucible passive.
Puedes hacer que sea más complicado o menos complicado.
Being able to ramp up the difficulty of the encounters is a double-edged sword. While it gives you the opportunity to make rapid progress on your Crucible weapon crafting.
Vale, puedes avanzar rápido si vas OP o puedes ir un poco más lento si no vas fuerte. Eso me gusta la mecánica. Lo sabía que no era un crafteo.
When you first find a weapon, it doesn't have a Crucible tree unlocked. Channeling that weapon at Crucible encounters will unlock and reveal its tree, as well as allocating the first skill. You can only allocate one skill at each tree depth, so you'll need to decide which path through the tree is best for your build.
Solo una por build.
More and more experience is required to unlock skills. The final depths can take quite an investment and can only be found rarely on endgame items, but also have some of the most powerful properties.
Que desbloquear varias va a ser muy de endgame. Eso parece más un power, más una power charge.
From your freezing pulse and Eye of Winter skills to poison, and the other allows various brands to be attached to your summoned Reaper. There are many such modifiers to skills that will enable very interesting build combinations.
Stormbrand se puede linkear
shields can
a
also
tu
be
Reaper.
empowered with their own Crucible trees. Here's a relatively simple low-level example. It gets a bit crazier as you approach the endgame. Speaking of the endgame, in endgame Crucible encounters, you'll occasionally find igneous geodes, currency items that can be cracked open to reveal a primeval remnant. This is a map-like item that grants access to the Forge of the Titans, the culmination of your Crucible journey. These primeval remnants always generate as rare items. Half of their mods are upsides and half are downsides. The upsides generally increase the rewards of the area or add special crafting options. For example, causing monsters to drop domination or magmatic ore, a form of tradable itemized Crucible tree experience.
Vale, podemos dropear experiencia, hostia. O sea, podemos vender la experiencia, podemos farmearla.
Remnants that is really rewarding upsides alongside downsides you can handle. If you don't think you'll survive a visit to the Forge of the Titans, trade the remnant away to someone else and gamble on cracking open another geode. If you survive and manage to reach the end of the area, you'll find the aforementioned forge, which allows you to merge Crucible trees on two items together. The way this process works is that you provide two items of the same class. For example,
dos objetos del mismo
a pair of shields or a pair of one-hand axes. One of these items will be melted down and applied to the other, which will keep its regular properties. Their Crucible trees will be merged together in an unpredictable way, taking elements
Los recombinadores, ¿no?
This is a little reminiscent of how
que puedes fusionar
mods, taking
pasivas.
parts of each Crucible tree and merging them together, as well as randomly upgrading, downgrading, or mutating skills on the resultant tree. While this process can create some really powerful trees if you get skills you wanted from both items,
vale, fusiona árboles de
completely wreck
pasivas.
your precious trees. So take care choosing which you risk combining.
Wow. O sea, las pasivas tochas vienen cuando combinas ítems.
There are ways to manipulate the system to improve your odds at getting certain outcomes. For example, any skills that have been allocated are more likely to show up in the resultant Crucible tree.
Vale, o sea, las pasivas que tú ya tienes seleccionada en el ítem es más probable que pasen.
Add Crucible trees to non-unique items. But it's possible to get a mod on the Forge of the Titans map that allows you to imbue a unique item with a Crucible tree, which can then be leveled up via regular Crucible encounters.
Vale, se podrá combinar
unique items together. You'll want to find a crystalline geode and crack it open to reveal the secret higher level version of the
Se va a poder fusionar los árboles de los únicos.
Say too much about it, but it will let you do some interesting things with Crucible trees. There's an important thing to note about Crucible trees on unique weapons. In addition to being much harder to unlock, there's a special rule about how they can be combined. A unique weapon must be combined with another copy of the same unique weapon to merge
Los únicos se pueden fusionar con el mismo tipo.
One copy, getting a good Crucible tree on a unique weapon makes it insanely valuable. It may also raise the trade value of all unique weapons by quite a lot, as players sacrifice them trying to create perfect Crucible trees.
Wow.
Occasionally, you'll find a Crucible passive skill tree with a special skill that indicates that the item will sell to
que las pasivas de los ítems son aleatorias.
These vendor skills usually occur relatively deeply in the tree, so take some effort
Item sells for a divine orb.
Leveling the item.
O sea, pillas ese punto.
These skills presents you with an interesting choice about whether you want to use the item or sell it to a vendor, and whether you want to spend your Crucible experience either revealing new trees to hunt for good skills, leveling up items to use, or leveling up items to sell. Crucible also features its own unique items you can earn. For example, El Abin's Visage, a unique helmet, is special in that it's the only armor piece other than shields that can receive Crucible passive skill trees.
Vale.
Wearing it allows you to double down on certain properties that are only available through these trees. There are several other unique items exclusive to Crucible for you to
Hay algunos
discover in this
ítems
league.
únicos disponibles
Crucible
solo
is
para
a dual
Crucible.
combat crafting league with a focus on encounter difficulty scaling and deep weapon customization with a power level that we have never seen before. Without a doubt, some of Path of Exile's most powerful weapons will be forged in Crucible. We can't wait to see what you manage to create. Like all recent Path of Exile expansions, Crucible includes a lot of changes with the goal of improving Path of Exile's endgame. One area we wanted to address was mobility on the Atlas passive tree.
Vale, quieren que haya movilidad en el árbol de pasivas.
You want to specialize in leagues that are on entirely different sides of the Atlas tree. Or maybe you want to focus on the type of altar that isn't near the leagues you have picked. To solve this, Path of Exile Crucible introduces Atlas Gateways. These are nodes that you can allocate on the Atlas tree that allow instant travel between two locations. There are 3 pairs of gateways, each allowing travel from the left side of the tree to the right side, or
son
vice
como
versa.
pequeñas mejoras para
Each end of the
permitirte hacer
gateway
árboles
consumes one Atlas
mejores.
skill point to allocate, but will potentially save you large amounts of travel points.
Qué chulo. Esto va a hacer farmeos mucho más mejores. Podrás farmear lo que tú quieres.
We're
Qué
targeting a
guay.
couple of endgame leagues that have
Vale,
fallen behind
vamos a ver el
other leagues
rework
in the Atlas
cabrechas.
tree. Let's start with Breach. In the live version of Path of Exile, there are 5 tiers of Breachstone.
Hay 5
In Path
tiers
of
de
Exile
brechas.
Crucible, we're raising the area levels of Breachstones to a much higher baseline level. 81 for elemental ones, 82 for physical, and 83 for chaos. Now that the regular Breachstones are much higher level, we have retired charged, enriched, and pure Breachstones. They will be converted to regular ones.
O sea, ahora solo va a haber
We've
dos
also
brechas.
changed how flawless Breachstones are acquired. Previously, you could only get them from Maven invitations, but we prefer access to the hardest Breach content to actually come from playing Breach. Now there are 2 ways to get flawless Breachstones: through blessings, which are now rarer as a result, and through a skill on the Atlas tree.
Hostia, vas a poder dropear flawless en
We've
los
also improved
propios
the pacing
mapas.
of Breach encounters.
Hostia.
Previously, Breaches felt pretty good early on, but quickly tapered off in density to the point where you wanted to abandon the Breach because it just felt like not enough monsters were spawning. Our changes now keep
¿Cuánta
Breaches
cantidad
feeling
de
dense
bicho?
throughout, leaning more on the side of it feeling overwhelming
¿Cuánta
towards
cantidad
the
de
end of the
bicho?
Breach. We have also reduced the duration of Breaches so there is constant monster
No
pressure
para.
so you can get on with your mapping sooner. There are a whole bunch of other Breach changes that you can read about in the patch notes, such as changes to the Betrayal Research Safehouse, Breach Scarabs, Breach Stones from Kirik missions, the Breach Harvest crafting option, the Fragment Stash tab, Divination cards, Breach unique items, Atlas passives, and so on. We're also
Vale,
revamping
Abyss.
Abyss in
A ver si
similar
Abyss va a
way.
dejar de ser un skip.
Abyssal Depths now always contain an Abyssal Lich. Previously, the prevailing gameplay was to check
Vale.
the loading screen art of an Abyssal Depths
Abyssal
to see if
Depths
it
siempre
contained a
tendrá
lich
un boss.
and bail out if it didn't. Now, the depths always contain a lich, removing the need for this step. While the rate of encountering Abyssal Liches is unchanged, Abyssal Depths are rarer than before. However, Abysses now have a chance to spawn a Stygian Spire in place of their reward chest, which will drop all of the jewels and other items you'd normally receive, as well as a Stygian Vice.
Vale, bien.
In addition, you're
Para no tener
guaranteed
que
to always get a
bajar.
4-hole Abyss alongside your Abyssal Depths. Previously,
Vale.
Abyssal Depths could only spawn immediately after a single Abyssal hole, which prevented you from getting full value from the Abyss.
Vale.
The Lightless Legion notable passive has been replaced with a new skill which grants Stygian Spires in your maps drop items with +1 to item level.
Me
This is
gusta.
intended to allow players to continue
Me
to be able
gusta,
to
me
obtain
parece
item level
muchísimo
86 Stygian
mejor.
Vices and
Me
other
parece
base types as a
muchísimo
reward
mejor
for
ahora.
specializing in Abyss.
Merece
The
muchísimo
small
mejor.
passives leading up to this notable passive have also been replaced. We've done a balanced pass on Abyssal Lich encounters to make them more appropriately difficult relative to the current standard of endgame encounters. Abyss uniques have had some balance attention also, and the
Han
details-
mejorado los objetos únicos de Abyss.
Overall, these
Quiero
changes
verlo.
ensure you can play a wider variety of leagues in the endgame, both through being able to access them more easily and because Breach and Abyss now feel far more modern and competitive with other popular leagues.
Vale, han hecho que las mecánicas de Breach y Abyss sean competitivas.
A
Está
big goal
chulo.
of the Crucible expansion is to provide a lot of new ways to build characters and to breathe new life into older builds.
To achieve this, we're doing 2 things. Firstly, we have created many more interesting options for one of Path of Exile's core build
Van a cambiar
systems,
la
the passive
maestría.
skill tree, by overhauling many of its masteries. Secondly, we have revamped 2 specific ascendancy classes.
Vale, van a
As we
cambiar
reviewed
cosas
the
en el árbol,
masteries of Path of
ascendencias y
Exile's passive
maestrías.
skill tree, we realized that a lot of the choices were rather bland and could be a lot more exciting.
A
We
ver.
went through the masteries one by one and tried to come up with as many interesting stats as we could, ignoring what was currently there.
Once we had a short list of high quality stats, we
A
added the
ver,
existing
tienen que
ones that
mostrarnos
used to be
algo
on
que
each
esté
mastery
tocho.
and picked the 6 best. All of the leftover ones have been saved for later or used in places like unique items. This process was performed on approximately half of the masteries on the tree, initially targeting the ones that needed the attention the most. Previously, some masteries only had 4 options, so we've tried to increase as many as possible to 6
Vale, van a tener
options.
más
We've
opciones,
also added
hasta
a couple of
6.
new mastery types that we felt were missing.
Y más tipos
Let's
de
look at an
maestrías.
example, the life mastery choices.
La maestría de
You can
vida.
see some of the interesting new options, such as the ability to manipulate your low life and full life thresholds,
Ah,
which
bueno.
allows you to more effectively use the damage while on full life support gem and many unique items.
¡Qué chulo!
Getting a
Cuentas
large
como
increase to
full
maximum
life
when you have
mientras
no life
tengas
on your
más de un
body
90.
not only works really well with a whole lot of unique
15%,
items,
o sea, 10% de more life si tienes 6 maestrías de vida. Dios.
Here you can see the armor and energy shield mastery has more options available than before. The other thing we focused on with this one is tying the mechanics together better. Instead of some being about armor and some being about energy
Vale,
shield,
me gusta.
we've tried to
La
make sure
maestría
each
tiene
unit
que ser algo
emphasizes
tocho.
having both armor and energy shield.
La maestría tiene que ser algo tocho.
On the Leech Mastery,
Más que
we combined the
stats.
3 increased life, mana, and energy shield recovery stats into one choice that affects all of them. The
Hostia.
space we've freed up has been used to add some powerful new options, such as a portion of your Leech applying instantly. The Spell Suppression Mastery also has many interesting options. Your chance to suppress spell damage becoming lucky is extremely useful before you've optimized your gear and haven't reached 100% yet. The third option rewards you for stacking more than 100% spell suppression, which previously had few benefits. Now it's something you can plan your itemization around. While looking at masteries, we noted that there were some mechanics
Hay
that
cosas
didn't have
chulas
enough
ahí.
passive tree support, so
Muchas
we
cosas
decided to add
suyas.
some more options and passive skill choices for those mechanics. We also wanted to grant more access to certain types of masteries in specific parts of the passive skill tree. For example, in order to allow more access to the attack mastery, we've added an attack cluster by the Templar and one between the Ranger and Shadow.
Han añadido más estas de ataque.
We wanted to create more access to other forms of recovery, such as regen and recoup, so we've added some new passive skill
han
clusters.
añadido recoup
Note
al
that there is now a
Inquisitor.
new mastery called Recovery.
Ay.
We've also added more capacity for investment in certain mechanics that we felt could be
Esto
improved,
broma, ¿no?
such as link skills, stun mitigation, and marks. These mastery improvements and passive tree changes are just some of the ones
Incremento del
introduced in
efecto de
Path of
tus
Exile
marcas.
Crucible. We look forward to your feedback on the rest when you check out the passive skill tree
Attack
next week.
Fire and Additional Projectile. ¿Qué?
Going through ascendancy classes, we identified 2 that needed work, the Saboteur and the Pathfinder. Both have been significantly changed in Path of Exile Crucible. These changes reinforce their respective identities while adding some new options to build around. The Saboteur is definitely the ascendancy class most aligned with traps and mines, but the old version of the Saboteur made it difficult to play anything but traps or mines. The new version has more builds available, including a whole new specialization, triggers. There are 2 notable
El
passives that help
Saboteur
with
se va a
this.
especializar en
Like
triggers.
Clockwork grants you the increased
30% de increased
which is a
cooldown
pretty
recovery
rare one.
rate.
This is great for triggered spells as it indirectly increases their damage. This notable also makes your enemies have longer cooldowns, which can be useful in certain boss fights, for example causing the Maven's memory game to occur less often. The Perfect Crime notable passive summons 2 trigger bots, which override the location of where a triggered spell is being cast, and instead causes it to trigger twice, once from each of their locations.
What?
The layout for the Saboteur's Trap and Mine ascendancy passives has changed, so that there aren't separate 4-pointers for traps and mines. Now each one has a 2-pointer that is connected to the same shared 4-pointer. We have also completely reworked Bomb Specialist to be specifically tied to area damage, so it's a slightly more general skill. It both gives you some area damage as well as some defense against incoming area damage against
Han
you.
mejorado muchísimo al Saboteur,
The Pathfinder has been overdue for some
Vamos a
attention,
ver
especially
la-
with recent features such as concoction skills that she could get the ability to specialize in. We also wanted the Flask-themed Ascendancy to have a proactive way of improving Life Flask usage. Master Distiller allows you to turn most of your skills into concoction-like effects.
la van a
Master Searcher now
especializar
effectively
en
gives all of your life flasks
puestos
the enduring
concoctios.
effect, previously only found on mana flasks. Finally, both of the major flask-themed branches now have some form of flask charge recovery. There are other improvements to the Pathfinder Ascendancy, such as Nature's Reprisal, now interacting with Wither to improve all forms
con
of your chaos
Wither.
damage,
Hostia.
rather than just attack forms of it.
What the
Check out
fuck,
the
pero
full
¿por
details in
qué?
the patch notes that
¿Y
we'll
este
be posting
bufo a la
after the
Poisonous Concoction?
Path of Exile Crucible introduces 9 new Val skills.
Hostia.
Last expansion, there was an emphasis on melee Val skills. In Crucible,
Más-
we're making
más
sure that
gemas
many other
Val
types
a
of
la
builds get
melee.
new skills to build around. Val skills let us introduce quite powerful effects that we couldn't normally give to a regular skill that can be used constantly. They also implicitly act as a buff to the underlying skill. Val Absolution upgrades one of your Sentinels of Absolution into an Apparition of Innocence. You can only have one apparition at once, but just check out these massive AoE skills it uses.
Absolution tiene una versión Val que invoca a Innocence,
preventing non-instant actions including movement, but granting massive damage reduction against hits. After a short duration, it also starts to regenerate your energy shield and mana at a fast rate. Both the damage reduction and regeneration last for a few seconds,
Val
but
Vortex
hit 3 times. It cannot be manually cancelled. Because the skill is instant, it's a great emergency button against dangerous boss slams. It also makes you count as being frozen, despite Arctic Armor normally making you freeze immune. Having another way to self-freeze may be of interest to a few mad scientist build creators in the community.
¿Qué? Lisandra, literal,
A barrage of piercing projectiles that cause lightning to strike nearby targets.
¡Hala, qué chulo! ¡Qué chula!
After a short amount of time, or when they collide with terrain, the arrows randomly change direction and continue flying.
¡Qué chula!
This occurs a number of times before the arrows expire. Each arrow can hit the same target once per redirect. Because the arrows travel for a set time before redirect,
¡Hala, qué guapo! La Lightning Arrow.
Projectile speed modifiers affect the distance traveled. High projectile speed lets you clear out
mola mucho.
while reducing your projectile speed increases the chance of them hitting the same target multiple times. With very low projectile speed, the skill can hit a single target 20 plus times.
¡Hostia!
Val Reap conjures a ring of scythes that deal damage to all enemies in a circular area.
Rea, Val Rea.
Behind a pool of blood that deals heavy
Val Rea deja una mierda en el suelo.
And for a short duration after they leave it. Val Reap instantly grants a large number of the blood charges used by normal Reap on use, as well as temporarily higher maximum blood charge capacity, substantially powering up the regular version of the skill. Path of Exile Crucible introduces 5 other Val skills we'll reveal over the next week. Val Animate Weapon, Val Domination, Val Ice Shot, Val Rejuvenation Totem, and Val Firestorm.
Vale, estas la van a contar luego, o sea, en otros días. Vale. Dios, vamos con los únicos.
There are 3 in particular I'd like to show you today. Blood Price is a unique helmet that has a new effect, reserving enemy maximum life. This does exactly what it implies, causing nearby enemies to start at 92% maximum life. While this increases your clear speed against all enemies, it's especially useful against bosses.
Empiezan con menos vida.
The drawback is that it reduces your maximum life, but provides decent life regeneration and block and stun recovery to counteract this.
Eso para ponérselo a un Animated Guardian.
An amulet that causes chaos damage over time to heal you while you're leeching life. While the amulet provides a decent amount of life leech itself,
o sea, espera, ¿es un amuleto que hace que el daño de caos que recibas te cura en vez de hacerte daño?
Widow Hail is a unique bow that is different from any other bow in Path of Exile.
¡Hostia, qué arco!
As a weapon, it does basically no base damage and doesn't grant any stats of its own, but it does dramatically increase the power of mods provided by your quiver.
¿Qué es eso?
Needless to say, this could produce some pretty ridiculous outcomes with good rare or unique quivers.
¿Qué es eso?
We'll reveal some of the other new uniques over the coming week.
¿Qué es eso?
Ruthless is a game mode that we released alongside the Sanctum expansion late last year.
Ruthless.
It's designed around extreme item scarcity and is challenging because you're constantly behind the item power curve.
A nadie le importa Ruthless.
An audience of players who love how rewarding item drops feel in such an austere environment. We have some small improvements to Ruthless and Path of Exile Crucible. Firstly, Eternal Orbs are back in Ruthless. These are an extremely powerful currency item that allows you to imprint an item and restore it if you're unhappy with the result of crafting. We disabled these game-wide 7 years ago because they were far too powerful when combined with all of the different crafting options Path of Exile offered at the time. Ruthless does not have the base game's crafting feature set, so we have enabled Eternal Orbs to drop in Ruthless, albeit extremely rarely. Ruthless now has its own set of challenges to complete. Like the ones in early Path of Exile, there are a total of 8, and they're very difficult. Like we've done in the past, we're hosting a boss kill event at the start of the Crucible Challenge League. It'll be held in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found and will require you to kill both the Uber Searing Exarch and the Uber Eater of Worlds, making it by far the hardest event we have ever run. The first place winner will get to work with our design team to add a new unique item to Path of Exile. They'll also receive a transferable Ultra VIP ticket to ExileCon in July. If they aren't able to attend or already have a ticket, then they are allowed to sell this one as they see fit. Second and third place finishers will receive a transferable VIP ticket to ExileCon that can also be sold at their discretion. If you'd like to enter the event, just create a character in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found on launch day. Best
Sí,
of luck
sí.
to everyone.
Ahora voy a ir corriendo a jugar Ruthless Hardcore solo self-am. Ahora voy.
New Zealand time, which is
Ahora.
July 28 to 29 for much of the rest of the world. We're going to be hosting
Ahora voy,
ExileCon
corriendo.
2023 in Auckland, New Zealand. While tickets to the in-person event are very hard to get, we'll be streaming the entire event for free. At ExileCon, we'll reveal our latest updates on Path of Exile 2, Path of Exile Mobile, and the next Path of Exile 1 expansion. Make a note in your calendar, tell your friends, and don't miss it. The second day of the Path of Exile livestream culminates in a competitive race event between some of Path of Exile's best players. In order to select the 4 competitors, we're going to run qualifier events during the months of April and May.
Ah, van a hacer
The winner of each
clasificatorios.
event will receive a VIP
Que eso es de
Exile
Ruthless, no
ticket,
preguntes.
return flights to Auckland and accommodation, and will compete in the race event live on stage. All 4 qualifiers in the final event will be run on the 3.21 version of Path of Exile, which has received a fair amount of early game balance work that will change the racing meta quite a lot.
You'll be able to read more in the patch notes. Once 3.21 releases next week, you'll be able to solve the new meta, practice hard, compete in the qualifier events, and hopefully win your place on stage in July.
Alongside Path of Exile,
Ojo, nuevo tipo de
we're introducing a few new
microtransacciones.
types of microtransactions. An example I wanted to describe today is that of mannequins. These are hideout decorations that you can place to show off sets of microtransactions you have assembled.
Ah,
You can equip them with your spare micros and pose them in various ways. It's
maniquís.
also possible
Que
to swap
puedes
your
equipar
entire
con tus
outfit with a
skins.
mannequins one, which lets you easily store micro sets to be retrieved later.
Son unos putos genios,
Other
Son
new
unos
microtransactions
putos
coming up include
genios.
wrapping paper, which lets you gift wrap items to hand to
Vamos a
other players,
convertirnos
or
en
even
un
drop in cards
escaparate.
for random people to pick up.
Vamos a convertirnos en un escaparate
Today
para
we're launching
skins.
2 new series of supporter packs. The Lithomancer
A ver
and
los supporter
Enchanter
packs, ojito.
Each tier contains the pack's full face value and points,
Ojito.
alongside several exclusive microtransactions.
A mí me
These packs
gustaría
are only
ya.
available for the
Sí,
duration
está
of the
guay,
Crucible
pero me hace
mode, and will
gracia.
leave the store forever when it ends. As always, the
A ver.
microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. The Lithomancer series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions.
El oso.
The Tunnel Bear isn't just a
El
drawing,
oso.
it will also take the place of the Crawler in Delves, lighting your surroundings and laying
Ah.
down cables.
Ah, sus...
Apparently, this is what happens
¿Qué?
when a bear gets into a kilo of sulfite. Might explain what happened to Nico. The Ring of the Demon Slayer attempts to exorcise rare and unique demons when you hit them. The souls of defeated demons are banished to the depths below. The ancient stone of the Lithomancer's armor set crumbles when you take damage,
Ah,
revealing the
hostia.
crimson core inside. The stone reforms if you haven't taken damage recently.
Ah, esto es para jugar Castle Damage Taken. Eso
A sip
está
from the
chulo,
ancestral
eso.
granite flask causes a Kurui ancestor to appear and surround you in protective wards. The ancestral portal encases you in molten armor when you travel through it.
Los portales están guapos.
The summoned
Los portales
Kurui
están
ancestor
guapos.
rallies you to battle and honestly seems to have an unhealthy obsession with combat.
Go forth and conquer.
El portal está
Ever want to
guapo.
practice running away from volatiles? The gunpowder foot attachment straps explosives to your legs, dispersing lit gunpowder behind you. Be careful, you can only outrun it for so long before it catches up.
Ah, bueno, no
The
está.
Enchanter Pack series also has 6 exclusive microtransactions.
A ver.
The Parrot of Exile pet parrots your exile.
Eh!
We'll just let it speak for itself.
El loro de Pableras.
Be wrong to do that here.
I need more mana.
Drinking from the bottled storm jade flask encases you in a surging tornado, churning up the ground in your wake. If you stand perfectly still while wearing the enchanted armor set, it will attract butterflies to flutter around you. Be careful not to disturb them. Sick of high-fiving giant purple appendages? The Ritualist's Breach Ring visually transforms breaches you find into occult summoning circles. The
Microtransacciones a las
Enchanted Crafting Bench
mecánicas.
replaces the normal crafting bench in your hideout with a suite of tools fit for a master artisan.
Wow.
The various crafting stations
está
burst
guapo.
into life as you use them. If you've ever wanted to remind your character who's really in charge, the Puppeteer's back attachment has you covered. It truly is the sinister presence pulling the strings. These new packs are available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase.
¿Por qué Diablo 4 a 70 euros me parece caro? Pero todo esto
The Forge and Gemling packs
por
are
90
also
euros
forever
cada uno me
available,
parece barato.
So now's your last chance to purchase them. Thank you for your continued support. We're about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. After that, we'll post the full patch notes for Path of Exile Crucible. As we approach release next week, our community team will post Crucible's challenges, information on how to update your item filters, more skill gem details, and information on how to prepare.
No tengo 40 pulsaciones, se me ha ido la mano, ¿vale?
We expect to launch the new mystery box and this season's Kerrick's Vault Pass, which can be purchased with points and has a new free track available.
Se va a poder comprar con puntos el pase de temporada. El pase de temporada se va a poder comprar por puntos. ¡Gracias! Por fin, ya era hora, hostia. Ya era hora. Ya era hora. Pues nada, esta es la reacción. Vamos a hablar del tema, venga.